So in the last video, we looked at two examples that dealt with functions that had exponents in them. And we looked at how to evaluate these functions in our calculator to maintain order of operations. So to maintain the order of operations and to make sure that we get the correct answer, we made sure that we put parentheses around the exponent. So in this video, we're going to look at a couple of different functions, a couple of them involving fractions, and then also functions that have fractions and exponents in them. And again, the most important thing to pay attention to when we're using our graphing calculator to evaluate these functions is to make sure we put parentheses where it's necessary to maintain order of operations. So let's take a look at S16. You can find this on page 28 in your textbook. Here we're given a function n of t, and we're asked to evaluate it at 0 and at 10. So let's just do one of the two. Let's evaluate n of 10. So I'm going to go ahead and do my substitution, and I'm going to write it down so that I can see very clearly exactly what it is that I need to type into my graphing calculator. So wherever I see t, I'm going to replace it with 10. And notice here, I'm not going to put parentheses around this exponent 10 because there's only one term. There's nothing else attached to that t, so it's not necessary to put parentheses, but you can if you want to. Putting in extra parentheses will not change the value of your answer, but leaving out a pair of parentheses, it will affect your answer. Here, we've got a fraction. So it's really important that anytime you have a fraction where either the numerator or the denominator, and maybe sometimes both, but anytime one or the other has more than one term in it, like here in the denominator, it has two terms. It's got the 0.03 and the 0.55. It's really important that we put parentheses around the entire denominator to keep them together so that when we evaluate the function, what we're really doing is we're taking 12.36 and dividing dividing 12.36 by the entire value of whatever 0.03 plus 0.55 raised to 10 power is. So down here in my work, I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around that denominator so that I can remember to type it in when I go to my graphing calculator. So let's go to the calculator and let's evaluate this function. 12.36 divided by, and again, you have to remember to put parentheses around that denominator to keep all those terms together. And I'm going to raise it to the 10th power and then press enter. And this gives us approximately 379.92. Okay? Now, if you want to try it without the parentheses, you'll see that you'll get a completely different answer. So here, I'll show you real quickly. Let me bring up my work from before and watch what happens when I leave out that pair of parentheses. So I'm going to delete the parentheses and now press enter, and notice that you get a completely different value. So 412 is not the same as 379. And again, here what we're doing is we're telling our calculator to take 12.36, divide that by 0.03, then whatever that answer is, then add it to 0.55 raised to the 10th power, which is completely different from taking 12.36 and dividing it by this quantity. Okay? All right. Let's move on to S20. So in S20, same idea. Here we've got a fraction and we've got an exponent here in the denominator and in the numerator. But notice that in the denominator, the exponent, there's more than one term. So we have to make sure we put parentheses around this entire exponent. So what I like to do is anytime I'm working on a problem like this, before I even start typing it into my calculator, I go ahead and usually start by putting all my parentheses in at the start, just to remind myself of what I need to type in when I actually type it into my graphing calculator. So here we're going to evaluate P at 5,000, R at 0.04, and T at 36. So let's go ahead and make all those substitutions. So P is 5,000. Right. E to the R is 0.04 minus 1. And then I got to make sure I put parentheses around my entire denominator. Okay, and then I'm raising it to the negative 0.04 times, and then t is 36. Again, you want to make sure that you put parentheses around the entire exponent as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and type this into our calculator, just exactly the way we've written it here. Okay, now one more thing. Some students say, do I need to put parentheses around the numerator since it looks like it's got a lot of stuff in there? Just to be safe, go ahead and put it in if you're not sure. In this situation though, you'll be safe just using one pair of open and closed parentheses because it's attached to that 5,000 by multiplication. But if you're not sure, just go ahead and put in the extra pair of parentheses, it won't hurt. So let's type it in exactly how we see it written on our paper. Second e, raise it to the 0.04 minus 1 close, close. Okay, another thing to pay attention to. Count how many open parentheses you have and make sure you have the same number of ending parentheses. So if I have 2 open, I need to make sure that I have 2 closed. Okay, divide it by 1 minus second e raised to the, okay, parentheses around the exponent, negative 0.04 times 36. And again, I have 2 open parentheses in the denominator, so I've got to make sure I put 2 closing parentheses in the denominator. Press enter. Okay, so this tells me that when I evaluate the function at those values, I get 267.41. Okay, I'll leave you with S22 to try on your own.